One of the really positive things about education over the last 2 decades is that there's been a massive increase in access. There are many more people studying, they're studying for much longer, and they're studying all sorts of different subjects. And I think one of the exciting and rewarding things for us as awarding bodies is that we've been able to support that process. Collectively, we form a sort of ecostructure, and we've grown with the system. I think to go through some process of massive administrative reorganisation now and end up with a monopoly provider would not be a good thing. After all, the lesson of the past 2 decades is that there's a lot of change going on out there. Domains of knowledge are changing, there are lots of discoveries in the world of science, the economy is changing, so you need to be able to be flexible, you need to be able to respond to change. History suggests monopolies don't do that very well. It's much better done by process of competition, and I think the existing system actually provides that in a most effective fashion.
The most significant challenge in the examination system is that of standards. Standards over time, standards between syllabuses from different organisations. Now, it might seem obvious that the way of solving that is to have one board. But in fact, what we really need is an apparatus for maintaining and monitoring standards over time, because we'll always need different specifications. In history, we need economic, medieval, modern. In mathematics, we'll need different specifications to meet the very different needs of different learners. One board would still have to operate different syllabuses. So you desperately need this apparatus to maintain and monitor standards. If you have a robust apparatus in place to do that, it doesn't matter how many boards you have, and that multiplicity of boards can bring all sorts of benefits in terms of innovation and efficiencies.
In an ideal world, we would have a 100% accurate exam system. We could achieve that very easily through doing a lot of very boring multiple choice questions that could be marked reliably, and we'd get exactly the right results. But we wouldn't be testing what we want to test. Our exams need to test students' knowledge, skills, experience, and that involves an element of human interaction. And as soon as you introduce humans, then there's always the risk of errors. We have a lot in place already to try and prevent those errors, and many checks that the question papers go through. But as we've seen this summer, from all the examining bodies, there have been errors, and more work needs to be done. Some might argue that just having one awarding body might be the solution to this, and I would argue against that. I think one of our big drivers is to create more reliable, more accurate, more valid exams, and we do that because of the competition we have and our desire to be the best and to produce the best exams for our school system.
One of the other things I'd be very concerned about if we move to a single exam board model would be that we'd lose a lot of the innovation that has existed over the last few years. Competition is actually a pretty good thing. It encourages all the exam boards to look at what they're doing, to try and innovate it, to try and do different things, to compete against each other. And that's been very positive. It's produced all sorts of new syllabuses. I can think of things like Salter's chemistry or Nuffield maths, so different approaches to curriculum and innovation. And I think we'd lose some of that if we went to a single exam board. There'd be no competitive stimulus to that exam board. And of course, if you think of monopoly providers in any other field of life, they don't have a very good track record. Why would it be different with exams?
We can and should improve the administration and operation of public examinations like GCSE and A-level. Of course we should. However, if we take an informed view of history and look back over the last 2 decades, where do we find the biggest failures in assessment? Not in public examinations. We find the biggest failures affecting millions of school children in government-administered tests associated with the national curriculum. There we find problems of data collection, administration of the tests, and marking. And those are administered by single bodies.
All over the world, education systems seek to improve themselves, and they seek to improve themselves by measuring themselves against other education systems. Some of the highest performing education systems in the world actually create competitive space where they allow international qualifications, curriculum, syllabuses to come in to their school system so they can measure themselves on their children in their system side by side. And sometimes that leads to them adopting, adapting, taking wholesale this input from overseas. Of course, in the United Kingdom, we've already got a competitive system. We've already got international players. We've already got a number of exam boards that are operating over here. So if we had If we decided to move to a centralised system, we would have to create a competitive space and design an operation which is inherent within the system we currently have. So why would you bother to move to a centralised system?
A-levels have international respect, and the recent Ofqual study comparing A-levels to the qualifications in other nations actually showed A-levels are an extremely high quality prestige qualification. It's also much misunderstood that other nations have things which are analogues of A-levels. Students in Finland, 16 to 18, basically study a core of subjects much like A-levels. In America, the Advanced Placement Award is an A-level equivalent, increasingly taken by high school students. If we look at Singapore, A-levels are preeminent there. Our qualifications are of high standing.
There is a view that moving to a single exam board would significantly reduce costs. But let's try and contextualise that. We spend £80 billion on education in the UK, and of that 80 billion, some 700 million is spent on qualifications and examinations. If you think of qualifications and examinations as a way of quality assuring what's going on in the education system, that means we're spending under 1% quality assuring that massive investment in the education system in the UK. That doesn't seem to me an unreasonable thing to do. But I think if you go beyond that and try and look at the history of the thing, there was a big wave of consolidation of exam boards in the 1990s. And whatever else that achieved, it didn't actually achieve any significant reduction in costs. Indeed, costs have gone up since the 1990s, but that's not been a function of efficiency or inefficiency on the part of the exam boards. That's because the number of exams that people have been taking has gone up so massively.
As part of Cambridge Assessment, we're a not-for-profit organisation. We recognise the importance of support materials for students and staff in the classroom, but we do that through partnership, not our own commercial enterprises. So we partner with the best publishers, the best support organisations, and we will endorse anyone that we feel is appropriate for supporting our qualifications. But we don't make any commercial gain out of that activity. All our focus is on qualifications and the assessment.
There are a lot of myths about the number of qualifications which we have in this country. The kind of analysis we've undertaken shows that we've got basically the same number of qualifications as the German system. Nobody accuses that system of being incoherent. You need choice, because schools need to be able to choose qualifications which meet the needs of their learners. And you need variety in respect of subjects like history. You have modern, economic, medieval, and as a result, the schools need to be able to choose a syllabus that will most motivate and most effectively meet the needs of their individual learners.